Alright everyone, Simon here. We're playing Assassin's Creed Revelations, and today we are going to have a look at the Hagia Sophia, which is right in front of us, except that Ezio's face is in the way. Let me just move. So there's the Hagia Sophia in the game. Now let's see what the game says about this particular building. It is a very, very famous building with a long and interesting history, so it might take us a while to go through all of the information we can find. Where is... No, that's something else. They all look similar because they're all copies, basically, of the Hagia Sophia, all the mosques. Alright, here we go. Two earlier churches occupied the spot where Hagia Sophia stands, both of which were destroyed within 100 years of their construction. But the third building, built by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century CE, was a masterpiece built to last, and for almost 1,000 years it stood as the largest cathedral in all Christendom, east and west. Following the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople in 1453, Sultan Mehmed swiftly converted the church into a mosque, Hagia Sophia Cami, but because he revered the building and its impressive history, he kept the structure and its contents virtually unchanged. The 4 minarets around its perimeter were added at various times in the century after conquest. These days, Hagia Sophia is not an official place of worship, rather it is a museum, blah blah blah. So yes, it was built by Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, and it stood since then, so it's about 1,400 years old or so. Pretty impressive, built to last. So the game doesn't really say much about that. Let's go to our friend Google and type in Hagia Sophia, Church of the Holy Wisdom. And let's just go straight into Wikipedia, although we do want to have a look at images, especially drawings like these. That's pretty awesome there. Actually, does this thing have a scale? Ah, crap. Doesn't really... Google's not really helpful. What if I click on... Nope. Google image search does not work in the server. Somebody call Valve. Call Gabe and tell him to fix that. Alright, so there's the picture that we were looking at. It does not have a person in it. It does not have a scale. Why do these people make these drawings and then don't give us a scale? But there probably is, and it just got left out. No, that's the upload. There's no scale. We don't know how big this thing is. Why do people do that? Honestly. Well, I mean, there's the... Actually, you might be able to tell from the photos. Let's look at this photo. Are there people in this photo? There aren't. Let me just get a really big... Okay, this is a really big photo. We'll let that load for a while. And let's see if we can find a picture with people in it so that we can tell how big. Lodge of the Empress. So this arch there is like 4 people tall. If you can kind of look at a person there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 people tall, that makes it 3, 6, 7 meters? 7 meters? About 7 meters tall, but then I don't know which arch that is. Is that this, or is it the one above? I think it's the one above, actually. Hold on, let me just go back. And click on that. This is a really big photo. And there's no people in it. Nope, there's no people in it. Okay, so we're above. See the small window openings there? Those are the towers. So that is 7 meters? Is that what it means? Am I seeing that right, or is that... Or is it that? No, that's... Oh, those are the windows up here. Okay, that there is 7 meters. There, that's 7. I don't know. Okay, I lost count. Okay, well let's go and read about it, and we'll figure out the size of it later on. So the Hagia Sophia, Holy Wisdom, is a former Greek Orthodox patriarchal basilica, later an imperial mosque, and now a museum in Istanbul, Turkey. From the date of its construction in 537 until 1453, it served as an Eastern Orthodox cathedral and seat of the Patriarchate of Constantinople, except between 1204 and 1261 when it was converted into a Roman Catholic cathedral under the Latin Empire. The building was a mosque from the 29th of May 1453 until 1931. It was then secularized and opened as a museum on the 1st of February 1935. The church was dedicated to the wisdom of God, the Logos, the second person of the Holy Trinity. Its patronal feast taking place on the 25th of December. The commemoration of the birth of the incarnation of the Logos in Christ. And that's just way too complicated for me. So the 25th of December, Christmas, is the birth of the incarnation of the Logos in Christ. Right. But the Holy Trinity, there's like I don't know. Don't worry. You can look it up yourself. I'm not going to go into that. Although sometimes referred as the Sancta Sophia, as though it were named after Saint Sophia. Sophia being the phonetic spelling in Latin of the Greek word for wisdom. Its full name in Greek is, I can't read Greek, is Shrine of the Holy Wisdom of God. Famous in particular for its massive dome, it is considered the epitome of Byzantine architecture, and is said to have changed the history of architecture. It kind of has, in some ways. It remained the world's largest cathedral for nearly 1,000 years until Seville Cathedral was completed in 1520. The current building was originally constructed as a church between 532 and 537 on the orders of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, and was the third church of the Holy Wisdom to occupy the site, the previous 2 having both been destroyed by rioters. Apparently riots are quite common in Constantinople. It was designed by the Greek scientist Isidore of Miletus, a physicist, and Euthymius of Tralles, a mathematician. The church contained a large collection of holy relics and featured, among other things, a 15-meter silver iconostasis, the focal point of the Eastern Orthodox Church for nearly 1,000 years. The building witnessed the excommunication of Patriarch Michael I Cerularius on the part of Pope Leo IX in 1054, an act which is commonly considered the start of the Great Schism between the East Orthodox Church and the Western Catholic Church. So the Pope excommunicated the Patriarch, and so then it split the 2 Christian factions. In 1453, Constantinople was conquered by the Ottoman Turks under Sultan Mehmed II, who ordered this main church of the Orthodox Christianity converted into a mosque. By this point, the church had fallen into a state of disrepair. Nevertheless, the Christian cathedral made a strong impression on the new Ottoman rulers, and they decided to convert it into a mosque. The bells, altar, iconostasis, and sacrificial vessels and other relics were removed, and the mosaics depicting Jesus, his mother Mary, Christian saints, and angels were also removed or plastered over. So in Islam, you don't worship pictures of people. So that's why they kind of plastered over the mosaics of all the saints and Jesus and all that. Islamic features such as the mihrab, minbar, and 4 minarets were added. It remained a mosque until 1931, when it was closed to the public for 4 years. It was reopened in 1935 as a museum by the Republic of Turkey. From its initial conversion until the construction of the nearby larger Sultan Ahmet Mosque, the Blue Mosque of Istanbul, in 1616, it was the principal mosque of Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia served as inspiration for many other Ottoman mosques, such as the Blue Mosque, the Sezade Mosque, Zezad, I don't know how to pronounce that, the Suleymaniye Mosque, Rustam Pasha Mosque, and the Hilik Al. I can't pronounce Turkish, bro. Never mind any of that. History. Oh wow, this is a long market already. So the first church on the site was known as the Great Church, or in Latin Magna Ecclesia, because of its larger dimensions in comparison to the contemporary churches in the city. Inauguration on the 15th of February 360 during the reign of Constantius II by the Arian bishop Eudoxius of Antioch, was built next to the area where the imperial palace was being developed. The nearby Hagia Irene Holy Peace Church was completed earlier and served as cathedral until the Great Church was completed. Both churches acted together as the principal churches of the Byzantine Empire. Writing in 440, Socrates of Constantinople claimed that the church was built by Constantius II. Was working on it in 346, a tradition which is not older than the 7th to 8th century, reports that the edifice was built by Constantine the Great. Wait a minute. It's attributed to different people. Zonaras reconciled the two opinions, writing that Constantius had repaired the edifice consecrated by Eusebius of Nicomedia after it had collapsed. Since Eusebius was bishop of Constantinople from 339 to 341, and Constantine died in 337, it seems possible that the first church was erected by the latter. The edifice was built as a traditional Latin colonnaded basilica with galleries and a wooden roof. It was preceded by an atrium. It was claimed to be one of the world's most outstanding monuments at the time. So the first church, which is not the one we're looking at, it was a pretty standard basilica. The Patriarch of Constantinople, John Chrysostom, came into a conflict with the Empress Aelia Eudoxia, wife of the Emperor Arcadius, and was sent into exile on the 20th of June 404. During the subsequent riots, the first church was largely burned down. Nothing remains of the first church today. Wait a minute. The Empress exiled the Patriarch of Constantinople, and as a result there were riots, and they burned down the church. Okay, well that's dramatic. The second church was ordered by Theodosius II, who inaugurated it on the 10th of October 415. The basilica with a wooden roof was built by architect Rufinus. As fire started during the tumult of the Nika revolt and burned the second Hagia Sophia to the ground on the 13th to 14th of January 532. So the second church was also a basilica with a wooden roof, and that got burned down as well. See, the thing about wooden buildings is that they get burned down eventually. Like, wood doesn't really last very long. Several marble blocks from the second church survive to the present. Among them are reliefs depicting 12 lambs. Well, there's some of them. Representing the 12 apostles. Originally part of a monumental front entrance, they now reside in an excavation pit adjacent to the museum's entrance, after they were discovered in 1935 beneath the western courtyard by A.M. Schneider. Further digging was forsaken for fear of impinging on the integrity of the building. So there's the remains of the previous church buried underneath the existing Hagia Sophia. So they've dug up this much so far. So there's marble, but the roof is wooden, and it got burned down. So there's kind of remains of the previous church right there. The third church, the current structure, on the 23rd of February 532, only a few weeks after the destruction of the second basilica, Emperor Justinian I decided to build a third and entirely different basilica, larger and more majestic than its predecessors. Justinian chose physicist Isidore of Miletus and mathematician Anthemius of Trellis as architects. Enthymius, however, died within the first year of the endeavor. The construction is described in the Byzantine historian Procopius' On Buildings. The emperor had material brought from all over the empire, such as Hellenistic columns from the temple of Artemis in Ephesus. It is Ephesus, right? Large stones from quarries in porphyry from Egypt, green marble from Thessaly, black stone from the Bosphorus region, and yellow stone from Syria. So mostly stone, but from different parts of the empire and different colors. More than 10,000 people were employed. This new church was contemporary. Actually, the 10,000. I mean, sometimes people exaggerate when they write histories, so I don't know if that's accurate. Maybe it is. This new church was contemporaneously recognized as a major work of architecture. The theories of Heron of Alexandria may have been utilized to address the challenges presented by building such an expansive dome over so large a space. Citation needed. The emperor, together with the patriarch Menas, inaugurated the new basilica on the 27th of December, 537, 5 years and 10 months after construction started. With much pomp. There was pumping. The mosaics inside the church were, however, only completed under the reign of Emperor Justin II. Hagia Sophia was the seat of the Orthodox Patriarch of Constantinople and a principal setting for Byzantine imperial ceremonies, such as coronations. Like other churches throughout Christendom, the basilica offered sanctuary from prosecution to outlaws. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, if you break the law, you just kind of run to a church and then you're safe. Is that good? I don't know if that's good. Earthquakes in August 553 and on 14th December 557 caused cracks in the main dome and the eastern half dome. The main dome collapsed completely, oh crap, during a subsequent earthquake on the 7th of May 558, destroying the Ambon Altar and Cyborium. The crash was due mainly to the too high bearing load and to the enormous shearing load of the dome, which was too flat. Enormous shearing load because it was too flat. Too high bearing load. Well, basically the structure wasn't strong enough to hold it up, and the dome was too flat. These caused the deformations of the piers which sustained the dome. The emperor ordered an immediate restoration. He entrusted it to Isidorus the Younger, nephew of Isidore of Miletus, who used lighter materials and elevated the dome by 30 feet. Well, 30 feet back then, so it's about 6.25 meters, or 20.5 current feet. Feet change. Like the measurements change over time for some reason, giving the building its current interior height of 55.6 meters. Moreover, Isidorus changed the dome type, erecting a ribbed dome with pendentives, whose diameter lay between 32.7 and 33.5 meters. Under Justinian's orders, 8 Corinthian columns were disassembled from Baalbek, Lebanon, and shipped to Constantinople around 560. This reconstruction, giving the church its present 6th century form, was completed in 562. The Byzantine poet Paul the Silentieri composed a long epic poem known as Ekphrasis for the rededication of the basilica presided over by Patriarch Eutychius on the 23rd of December 562. Fascinating. Let me just pause for a moment and have a look at this. So even now, the dome is not that... I mean, it's not that tall. But apparently the original one was even flatter, and so then it wasn't structurally sound. Actually, if we look at it, I want to climb up. Let's climb up onto one of the minarets, so we can have a look at the domes. If you look at the half domes at the 4 sides of the main dome, you can kind of see that they're flatter than the actual main dome. So the original dome might have been a similar proportions. Why can't I climb that? So let me just come up here and get up to this tower, so we can have a look at the domes. Also, it's 55 meters on the interior, so not much more on the exterior. I wonder if we can try to estimate the height of it in game. Might be a bit difficult because it is so big. Yeah, I don't know if you can really tell from this angle here. So you see how these side domes, they're flatter in shapes than the main dome. And the thing about domes is that if they're too flat, then actually I don't know if I should explain structural concepts here because it's kind of difficult to explain without diagrams. But basically, it turns from compressive stresses into shearing stresses as the thing gets flatter. And I mean, stone works well with compression. It does not work well with shearing. That doesn't make any sense to anyone that doesn't know anything about structure. So I'm sorry. I guess I have to explain it at some other time, somewhere else maybe. But anyway, so the flatter the dome, the less structurally sound it is, basically. And the same with arches too. Like a pointed arch is actually more stable if it's stone, because I mean, the closer it is to being completely vertical, the more it's just pressing straight down. Whereas the more horizontal it becomes, it's still pressing down, but it's pressing down on nothing because it's the arch, right? The arch, you arch over a space, and so gravity pulls downwards. So, if it's vertical, then it's pulling straight down onto other blocks of stone. Whereas if it's horizontal, it's pulling down over nothing, and there's less structure holding it up. Does that make sense? It's kind of, I don't know. Anyway, so the flat domes were not structurally sound, and they had to rebuild it after it collapsed, after a few earthquakes. Alright, so in 726, the Emperor Leo the Isaurian issued a series of edicts against veneration of images, ordering the army to destroy all icons, ushering in the period of Byzantine iconoclasm. At that time, all religious pictures and statues were removed from the Hagia Sophia. After a brief reprieve under Empress Irene, the iconoclasts made a comeback. Emperor Theophilus was strongly influenced by Islamic art, which forbids the representation of living beings. He had a two-winged bronze door with his monograms installed at the southern entrance of the church. Oh, that's interesting. So even under the Byzantines, they started removing icons, as in, like pictures of people from the church, because the Byzantines were also influenced by Muslim thinking. The basilica suffered damage, first in a great fire in 859 and again in an earthquake on the 8th of January 869 that made a half-dome collapse. Emperor Basil I ordered the church repaired. There's a lot of earthquakes, wow. After the great earthquake of 25th October 989, again, which collapsed the western dome arch, the Byzantine Emperor Basil II asked for the Armenian architect how on earth do you pronounce that? Trad? In Latin, Tiridates. How on earth do you pronounce that word? Creator of the great church of Ani and Gina to direct the repairs. He erected again and reinforced the fallen dome arch and rebuilt the west side of the dome with 15 dome ribs. The extent of the damage required 6 years of repair and reconstruction. The church was reopened on the 13th of May 994. At the end of the reconstruction, the church's decorations were renovated, including the additions of paintings of 4 immense cherubs, a new depiction of Christ on the dome, and on the apse a new dedication of the Virgin Mary, holding Jesus between the apostles Peter and Paul. On the great side arches were painted the prophets and the teachers of the church. Alright, so they put the people back into the church. In his book, De Ceremoniis Ole Byzantinae, Book of Ceremonies of the Byzantines, Emperor Constantine VII wrote a detailed account of the ceremonies held in the Hagia Sophia by the emperor and the patriarch. And that's the end of the paragraph. Okay, well, that doesn't really tell us anything. Upon the capture of Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade, the church was ransacked and desecrated by the Latin Christians, as you do. The Byzantine historian Nicetas Choniates described the capture of Constantinople. Many reputed relics from the church, such as a stone from the tomb of Jesus, the Virgin Mary's milk, the shroud of Jesus, and bones of several saints were sent to churches in the West and can be seen there now in various museums. The Virgin Mary's milk? Ew. During the Latin occupation of Constantinople, the church became a Roman Catholic cathedral. Baldwin I of Constantinople was crowned emperor on the 16th of May 1204 in Hagia Sophia at a ceremony which closely followed Byzantine practices. Enrico Dandolo, the Doge of Venice, who commanded the sack and invasion of the city by the Latin Crusaders, it was the Venetians who did it, in 1204, is buried inside the church. This guy has balls. So it was Venice who kind of led the Fourth Crusade into Istanbul or Constantinople and sacked it, because the Venetians wanted to weaken Byzantine influence in the Mediterranean, so they kind of hijacked the crusade and used it to sack Constantinople. Venetians. The tomb inscription carrying his name, which has become a part of the floor decoration, was spat upon by many of the angry Byzantines who recaptured Constantinople in 1261. However, restoration led by the brothers Gasperi and Giuseppe Fossati during the period 1847 and 1849 cast doubt upon the authenticity of the Doge's grave. It is more likely a symbolic memorial rather than a burial site. Okay, so he's probably not actually buried there. He just put his name on a stone in the floor because he's like that. But there it is, actually. There's the marker. After the recapture in 1261 by the Byzantines, the church was in a dilapidated state. In 1317, Emperor Andronicus II ordered 4 new buttresses to be built in the eastern and northern parts of the church, financing them with the inheritance of his deceased wife, Irene. New cracks developed in the dome after the earthquake of October 1344, and several parts of the building collapsed on 19th of May 1346. Consequently, the church was closed until 1354, when repairs were undertaken by architects Astrias and Peralta. Wow, earthquake city. So Constantinople, or Byzantium, or Istanbul is prone to earthquakes, which makes the survival of the Hagia Sophia that much more remarkable. Like it's been shaken up quite a bit, but it's still standing. Alright, mosque. Constantinople was taken by the Ottomans on the 29th of May 1453. In accordance with the custom at the time, Sultan Mehmed II limited his troops 3 days of unbridled pillage once the city fell, after which he would claim its contents himself. Hagia Sophia was not exempt from the pillage, becoming its focal point as the invaders believed it to contain the greatest treasures of the city. Not really. Shortly after the city's defenses collapsed, pillagers made their way to the Hagia Sophia and battered down its doors. Throughout the siege, worshippers participated in the Holy Liturgy and prayer of the hours at the Hagia Sophia, and the church formed a refuge for many of those who were unable to contribute to the city's defense, such as women, children, and elderly. Trapped in the church, congregants and refugees became spoils to be divided among the Ottoman invaders. The building was desecrated and looted, and occupants enslaved, violated, or slaughtered. While elderly and infirm were killed, women and girls were raped, and the remainder chained and sold into slavery. I don't know. Is that accurate? The fall of Constantinople, is that accurate? End of the Byzantine Empire. The last centuries of Byzantium. It's the same guys. It's the same source. Like all these references is from the same 2 dudes. So I don't know. Anyway, so according to those two guys, there was much pillaging and rape. Priests continued to perform Christian. I don't know how accurate that is, to be honest. I don't know how accurate that is. Because that's like, like it's. How would you know that? It would have to be eyewitness accounts. Like there wouldn't be any evidence of that left behind. Like what happened to the people who were hiding in the church at the time? Like it would have been people telling stories to historians who then wrote it down. Like, I don't know how accurate that's going to be. It's possible, of course. Like when a city gets conquered, things get looted. It's not unusual. But anyway, as described by several Western visitors, such as the Cordoban nobleman Piero Tafur and the Florentine Cristoforo Buondelmonte, the church was in a dilapidated state, with several of its doors fallen from their hinges. Mehmed II ordered a renovation as well as the conversion. Mehmed attended the first Friday prayer in the mosque on the 1st of June 1453. Hagia Sophia became the first imperial mosque of Istanbul. To the corresponding waqf, it is waqf, right? To the corresponding waqf were endowed most of the existing houses in the city and the area of the future Topkapi Palace. From 1478, 2,360 shops, 1,300 houses, 4 caravanserais, and 30 bowser shops, and 23 shops of sheep heads and trotters gave their income to the foundation. Basically, they were taxed, and they took the money and used it to rebuild the church, or the mosque. Through the imperial charters of 1520 and 1547, shops and part of the Grand Bazaar and other markets were added to the foundation. Before 1481, a small minaret was erected on the southwest corner of the building, above the stair tower. Later, the subsequent Sultan, Bayezid II, built another minaret at the northeast corner. One of these collapsed after the earthquake of 1509, and around the middle of the 16th century they were both replaced by 2 diagonally opposite minarets built at the east and west corners of the edifice. Actually, I'm not. Let me just take a break and go back and look up these references. Let me look up that name. This collecting account shows how the fall will after siege of several weeks. Is this how accurate is this? The fall of Constantinople was the capture. No, I want the book. This is a cultural references. Third Rome, final assault. No, this is the actual fall of Constantinople. This is not the book. Alright, let's go back. Amazon.com. When was this written? Classic accounts. It's a reprint. Reprint edition. It was reprinted in 1990. Doesn't really tell us anything particularly useful. On Stephen Runciman's The Fall of Constantinople, okay. Tragic heroes is precisely how Stephen Runciman describes the Greeks in his essential account of the siege in 4. See, I'm pretty sure this account is biased. I'm pretty sure that this account is biased. There was never a greater crime against humanity than the Fourth Crusade. Well, the Venetians. I'm just kind of glancing through this. I'm sorry I'm not really explaining very much. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I do not know either way whether that account is reliable or not. Anyway, let's go back to this. So in the 16th century, the Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent brought back 2 colossal candlesticks from his conquest of Hungary. They were placed on either side of the mihrab. During the reign of Selim II, the building started showing signs of fatigue and was extensively strengthened with the addition of structural supports to its exterior by the great Ottoman architect Mimar Sinan, who was also considered one of the world's first earthquake engineers. So interestingly, a lot of the structure that we see was probably added quite a bit later than when the building was first built. In addition to strengthening the historic Byzantine structure, Sinan built the 2 additional large minarets at the western end of the building. The original Sultan's Lodge and the Turba, the mausoleum of Selim II, to the southeast of the building in 1576-7. In order to do that, 1 year before parts of the Patriarchate at the south of... wait a minute, what? In order to do that, 1 year before, parts of the Patriarchate at the south corner of the building were pulled down. That's really bad grammar. Moreover, the Golden Crescent was mounted on the top of the dome, while a respect zone 35 asin, about 24 meters wide, was imposed around the building, pulling down all the houses which in the meantime had nested around it. So people built houses right up against the mosque, but then they pulled all of that down to clear out some space around the Hagia Sophia. Later, his turba hosted also 43 tombs of Ottoman princes. This is just really bad grammar. So they built a whole bunch of graves around it. Alright, fine. Murad III also had 2 large alabaster Hellenistic urns transported from Pergamon and placed it on 2 sides of the nave. They literally have the histories of every single piece of loot in the building. In 1717, under Sultan Ahmed III, the crumbling plaster of the interior was renovated, contributing direct or indirectly to the preservation of many mosaics, which otherwise would have been destroyed by mosque workers. So they basically what they did was they plastered over the old mosaics and then put new stuff on top. And so by doing that, they kept the mosaics intact underneath the plaster. So the old Byzantine stuff is still there because of this. In fact, it was usual for them to sell mosaic stones believed to be talismans to the visitors. So instead of so they were routinely kind of looting the place and selling them for souvenirs. But Ahmed III plastered over it. Sultan Mahmud I ordered the restoration of the building in 1739 and added a madrasa, a Quranic school, now the library of the museum. And Imaret soup kitchen for distribution to the poor, and a library. And in 1740, a Sadievan foundation for ritual ablutions. Basically, you're supposed to wash your hands and face and things before you go to prayers, thus transforming it into a Kaliye, in other words, a social complex. At the same time, a new Sultan's Lodge and a new mihrab were built inside. The most famous restoration of the Hagia Sophia was ordered by Sultan Abdulmecid and completed by 800 workers between 1847 and 1849, under the supervision of Swiss-Italian architect brothers Gaspare and Giuseppe Fossati. The brothers consolidated the dome and vaults, strengthened the columns, and revised the decoration of the exterior and the interior of the building. The mosaics in the upper gallery were cleaned, the old chandeliers were replaced by new pendant ones. New gigantic circular framed discs or medallions were hung on columns. They were inscribed with the names of Allah, the Prophet Muhammad, the first four caliphs Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, and the two great-grandchildren of Muhammad, Hassan and Hussein. But the calligrapher Kazaska Mustafa Azed Effendi. In 1850, the architect Fossati built a new Sultan's Gallery in a Neo-Byzantine style connected to the royal pavilion behind the mosque. Outside the Hagia Sophia, a timekeeper's building and a new madrasa were built. The minarets were altered so that they were of equal height. When the restoration was finished, the mosque was reopened with ceremonial pomp on 13th of July 1849. So it's gone through a lot of renovations over the centuries. That's okay. So I'm not sure what we're looking at then in the game.